Welcome to today's historical deep dive. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. You wake before dawn, not gently. The air is thin and bites at your lungs, carrying the scent of damp straw, wood smoke clinging to fabric and skin, and the sleeping bodies pressed close. It's the cold that pulls you from sleep, a gnawing ache in your bones that settled in months ago with the turning season and won't leave until the sun gains true strength. Beside you, your wife coughs, a dry rattle that scrapes at the silence. Your youngest whimpers in a restless dream shared by half a dozen siblings or aging kin within these four flimsy walls. There is no fire, only the dead ash of last night's embers, a ghost of warmth against the pervasive chill. Your hands, thick and calloused from years of grasping the plow, grope for the rough-spun wool blanket, utterly inadequate against the cold that seeps from the very earth beneath your feet. Your legs ache from yesterday's labor in the fields, a dull throb that is as constant as your heartbeat. This is the common currency of your existence, the ache, the chill, the hunger always lurking. You listen to the sounds of the hut and beyond, the rustle of rodents in the thatch overhead, bold in the pre-dawn dark, the first tentative crow of a rooster in the village, a signal for the brave or desperate, the distant bleat of a sheep shifting restlessly in its pen. This is your world, contained within these walls of wattle and daub and rough timber, bound not by clocks or calendars you understand, but by the rhythm of the sun, the cycle of the crops, and the relentless demands of mere survival. Every breath is felt, a struggle against the biting air. Every movement is a calculation against fatigue and the gnawing emptiness in your belly. There is no easing into the day, no soft transition. The moment your eyes open, the full, unyielding weight of it settles upon you like a shroud woven of chill and dread. The simple act of waking is a confrontation with the hard reality of existence, stripped bare of comfort or predictability, as raw as freshly turned soil. It is a world that demands immediate, unthinking action, where hesitation can mean a precious scrap of warmth lost or a vital moment of dawn labor missed before the manor's bailiff comes calling. The thought of the long, arduous day ahead doesn't just reside in your mind. It's a physical presence, a pressure behind your eyes, a stiffness in your limbs that mirrors the rigor mortis you've seen claim too many. Yet, you rise, because you must. There is no other path. This first moment, this waking into the perpetual chill and dim light, encapsulates the fundamental reality of medieval peasant life. A constant, often losing, battle against the elements and exhaustion, where survival is the only objective, and the promise of another sunset is the only fragile reward. Ask yourself, would you survive without choice, or bend just enough to fit the mold they cast you in? Was it faith that saved them, or the sheer, unyielding force of needing another breath? Before the sun clears the trees, you are outside the hut. The morning ritual is swift, born of generations who knew the unforgiving chill of pre-dawn, a brief, shivering genuflection towards the unseen church spire, a hurried sign of the cross tracing frost-tinged air, a muttered prayer for strength, or perhaps just for the strength to find strength. You don't question why you do it, only that you must. It is habit, inherited like the patched tunic you wear, a fragile shield against the vast, indifferent sky. Inside, a meager fire is coaxed back to life, its hesitant flames fighting the damp darkness. The air smells of smoke, stale straw, and the pervasive underlying scent of damp earth. Breakfast is pottage, a thin, watery stew. Yesterday's leftovers stretched with more water, and whatever grains or withered vegetables might be left in the larder. Today, perhaps a handful of dried peas, if you were lucky enough to squirrel them away from the rodents before the rats claimed them. You ladle it out into rough-hewn wooden bowls, watching carefully, eyes sharp, to ensure a desperate fairness among the children. Their small faces are already etched with the strain of insufficient sleep and the promise of an empty belly soon to return. Your own bowl is barely a gesture, a symbolic scoop that leaves the bottom of the pot almost untouched. A silent sacrifice you make daily, instinctively. It is nourishment, yes, the bare minimum needed to keep the spark of life flickering, but also a constant searing reminder of scarcity. Each lukewarm spoonful is not a pleasure, not a comforting start to the day, but fuel for the back-breaking work to come, the endless tasks of the field, the wearying labor that demands every ounce of energy you can muster. It is a desperate attempt to stave off the gnawing hunger that is your shadow, a constant physical ache that permeates every thought, every action. This simple meal, this thin soup, reveals the deep-seated, existential fear of famine that permeated every level of medieval society, a dread woven into the very fabric of life. Nowhere was this fear more acutely felt than for the peasant tied to the land's unpredictable bounty. Your very existence is a gamble on weather you cannot control, pestilence you cannot understand, and the unpredictable whims of a lord who demands his due regardless of your hardship. We, today, rarely experience hunger as a daily, physical threat, a constant, unwelcome companion that shapes every single decision, from how you divide the meal to whether you dare challenge your lord. For them, for you in this moment, food is not a choice, a comfort, or a pleasure. It is the thin veil separating life from death, a fragile barrier constantly under assault from forces beyond your control. A late frost, too much rain, a blight on the wheat, a marauding band of soldiers, a lord demanding a higher tribute. This makes you pause, doesn't it? It makes you question our modern anxieties, the fear of missing out, the stress of social media, the pressure to succeed in a world overflowing with options, against the raw, elemental fear of simply not having enough to eat tomorrow or the day after. What does it do to a soul to live with hunger as your constant shadow, to know that tomorrow's breath depends entirely on today's luck and the uncertain yield of the unforgiving earth? You stumble out into the pre-dawn chill, the kind that seeps into bone. Your breath hangs in the air like ghosts. This isn't the path to your small, meager plot of land, the few strips you call your own. This is the road to the Lord's fields, the Demenzi, the best land, fat and black from generations of manuring, yet it belongs utterly to Him. You join the shuffling line of figures from the village, hunched shapes against the gray horizon. silent save for coughs and the creak of rough wool. This is your duty, your core obligation, labor owed, not given. Today, the Ard calls, not the lightweight scratch plow used on your own stony ground, but the heavy, wooden beast pulled by a team of lumbering oxen. You take your place beside a neighbor, hands raw on the rough wood. The oxen strain, their breath clouds joining yours. The Ard bites into the earth, a slow, agonizing cut. Each furrow is a battle against the heavy, unforgiving soil. Your shoulders ache, your back screams. Muscles you didn't know you had ignite with protest. Hour after endless hour, you walk the line, turning the earth for a harvest you will not fully reap. Perhaps tomorrow it will be clearing stones thrown up by the plow, stones that feel like insults from the earth itself, or mending fences, stooping with frozen fingers, or spreading dung, the acrid smell thick in the air, a constant reminder of waste and necessity. This isn't merely work, this weak work, this boon work, demanded at peak seasons, planting, harvest, is the physical chains that bind you. It is the undeniable daily manifestation of your lack of freedom. Every drop of sweat, every ache in your bones, is a tribute paid to a man who holds sway over your existence, a man whose power can feel absolute. It's not abstract economics, it's sweat and pain given to someone who could, theoretically at least, mete out harsh justice, even death. The surprising insight here is not just the harshness of the labor, but how this forced communal suffering could, paradoxically, forge a strange sort of solidarity. You hate the work, you resent the Lord, but side by side in the mud, sharing the same ache, you find a silent understanding with your neighbors, a shared burden that binds tighter than any decree. This relentless, obligated labor forces us to confront the stark reality of medieval social structure. Rights were few, defined by custom and the Lord's whim. Obligations were paramount, etched into the rhythm of your life by inherited status. It was a system built on power, enforced through dependency and the threat of starvation or reprisal. Compare this to the relative freedom, the contracts, the regulations of modern labor. It highlights just how recently the idea of personal autonomy, the right to your own time and energy, has become a widespread concept. The security offered by the Lord, protection from raiders, a semblance of order, came at a cost that feels unimaginable to us. Ask yourself honestly, standing here in the muddy field as the sun finally breaks the horizon, warming nothing but the air. Could you trade your freedom, the ownership of your own labor, for the perceived security of belonging to a Lord, however harsh he might be? Or would the constant grind, the endless obligation, break your spirit entirely? This is the quiet struggle fought in every furrow, under every heavy sky. The sweat stings your eyes. The earth, dark and loamy, clings to your bare hands. After the Lord's fields are sown, plowed, or reaped, after the days you owed him are paid in aching muscle and sun-beaten skin, there is your own patch, not one neat block, but often scattered ribbons across the common fields, narrow slices of soil totaling perhaps only 3 or 4 acres. It is little, less than your neighbor might have, more than another. But it is yours. This is where hope lives, intertwined with a gnawing fear. Every seed you scatter, a handful of barley or oats tossed with a practiced sweep of your hand, is a tiny prayer, a desperate gamble against a fickle sky. You watch the clouds with the intensity of a fortune teller reading entrails, willing them to bring rain at the right time, praying they don't bring hail that can shred a young crop in minutes. Pests, beetles, blight, the endless hungry birds are not merely annoyances. They are omens of potential starvation, adversaries in a silent, constant war. You work this land with a ferocious, tireless energy that strangers from far-off lands, disconnected from the earth, might find incomprehensible. Your back aches, your hands are cracked and calloused, but you dig, you weed, you nurture, because the yield here is the fragile barrier between your family and hunger. It is the difference between bread and an empty belly, between shivering through winter and perhaps not seeing spring. A love for this small piece of earth runs deeper than words. It is a primal love, tied to the faces of your children gathered around a sparse table. It is also a source of unending anxiety, a weight that settles on your chest with the setting sun. This intimate connection to the land, where your very survival is rooted in the soil beneath your fingernails, forges an identity far removed from the world that will one day be. You are not defined by a craft in a workshop or figures in a ledger. You are defined by the seasons, the relentless cycle of planting and harvest, the temper of the weather, and the simple, back-breaking act of coaxing life from the earth. Your calendar is marked not by saints' days alone, but by the readiness of the soil, the height of the grain, the ripening of the berries. There is an honesty in this, a direct consequence for every effort, every mistake. If you are lazy or unlucky, the consequences are immediate and stark. There is a surprising insight here, perhaps a melancholy one. The land is your life, but it is also your master. You believe in saints who might intercede for a good harvest. You mutter ancient superstitions about planting by the moon or burying charms in the furrows. These aren't quaint traditions. They are desperate measures born of absolute vulnerability. If the crop fails, faith might offer solace, but it offers little food. This direct, undeniable cause and effect between your physical labor and your survival creates a pragmatic worldview, one that values resilience above almost all else. Yet, ironically, this profound connection also makes you utterly powerless against forces you cannot control. Drought, flood, the Lord raising his rent, the tax collector demanding his due just when the harvest is poorest. It makes you wonder about the satisfaction and the relentless stress of being so intimately connected to the source of your sustenance, a connection most in the distant future will utterly lose. Would you trade the calloused hands and the constant fear for comfort and uncertainty? For a life where your food arrives in boxes, its origins a mystery? Or is there a hidden strength, a different kind of peace, found in knowing precisely what sustains you, even as you live perpetually on the edge of the abyss? Ask yourself, is this deep, visceral connection to the earth a blessing, a curse, or simply the unforgiving reality that shaped everything you are? The earth is hard, unyielding under the rough soles of your worn boots. It is early spring, and the air still bites, sharp with the promise of frost that could steal the future before it has even been born. You watch the men hunched over the plow, the oxen straining, the earth turning in heavy, reluctant furrows. This is not just dirt being turned. It is the turning of the year, the absolute, non-negotiable rhythm that dictates everything. Life is a breath held between desperate labor and precarious rest. Spring arrives not with gentle warmth, but with a relentless demand. Plowing must be done, seeds sown, before the soil dries, before the window closes. Hope is a fragile shoot, pushing through the cold ground, perpetually threatened by the dread of late freezes, of floods, of blight. Every seed dropped is a prayer, a gamble, against the vast indifference of nature. Summer brings a different kind of strain. The sun beats down, relentless. Weeding is backbreaking, endless. The crops grow, yes, but so do the pests, the weeds, the whispers of drought. You tend the small garden plot, guarding precious herbs, watching the sky for rain that may or may not come. The waiting is agony, the anxious gaze fixed on ripening grain, counting the days until the harvest that will either save or doom you. Was it faith that sustained them through this wait, or the crushing certainty that failing meant starvation? Perhaps both. Then comes autumn, a glorious, terrifying explosion of activity. The harvest is here. The fields are a scene of frenzied, desperate energy. Reaping knives flash. Sheaves are bound, hauled, stacked. The threshing floor rings with the beat of flails, separating grain from chaff, separating survival from failure. It is a race against time, against the shortening days, against the inevitable return of the rain and cold that could rot everything you've toiled for. Men, women, and children work from sunup to sundown, their muscles screaming, driven by the knowledge that every last kernel gathered is a defense against the long, hungry months ahead. Winter descends. A siege of biting cold and short, gloomy days. The world outside is hostile, frozen. Life retreats indoors, huddled around the meager fire. This is the season of precarious reliance on the stores you manage to gather. Every meal is a calculation, a portioning of dwindling supplies. Hunger is a constant, gnawing presence, a reminder of your fragility. Yet winter is not truly an off-season. The pressing tasks change, but the pressure never lifts. Tools break and must be mended. Wool must be spun, clothes mended. The forest demands labor. Trees felled for fuel and building. Ditches need digging. Fields cleared of stones for the spring that feels impossibly far away. The worry is a cold companion, as constant as the draft under the door. This life, lived in absolute, inescapable synchronicity with the turning of the earth, fostered a relationship with nature that is almost unimaginable to us now. The sun, the rain, the frost were not merely weather phenomena. They were arbiters of life and death, divine pronouncements on your fate. This deep, existential dependence bred a profound respect, yes, but also a primal fear. Nature was a powerful, capricious master, to be placated with prayers and rituals, its power acknowledged in every aching bone and empty belly. It's a connection we have largely severed through the marvels of technology and the insulating comfort of urbanization, shielding ourselves behind climate control, global supply chains, and concrete walls. Ask yourself, we no longer live at the mercy of the spring frost or the autumn rain. Are we less resilient for it? Less aware of our fundamental animal reliance on the delicate balance of the planet that still holds our fragile lives in its vast, indifferent hand? You huddle closer to the fire, the heat battling the persistent chill that seeps through the wattle and daub walls. Smoke, thick and acrid, curls around the rafters, stinging your eyes despite the small opening in the roof that allows some of it to escape. This is home. This small, dark, often suffocating space is the heart of your world, where survival begins and ends. It's here, crowded around the glowing embers of the central hearth, that life is lived out in relentless, inescapable proximity. There is no separate room for sleeping, no private corner for thought. Your straw mattress lies on the floor, indistinguishable from your parents, your siblings, perhaps even the space shared by a sow and her piglets sheltering from the biting winter winds just feet away. In the depths of the cold season, sharing this space with animals isn't a choice, it's a calculation. Their body heat adds precious degrees, a small living furnace against the frost's deadly embrace. But it comes with the smells, the sounds, the constant, undeniable presence of other beings. Your world shrinks to the confines of these walls, a universe of smoke, rough wool, animal breath, and the ever-present hum of family. Meals are a communal ritual, fingers dipping into a shared pot of thin gruel or stew. Conversation a low murmur against the crackle of the fire. There are no secrets here. Every sigh, every cough, every hushed argument is heard. Your mother mends your tunic with hands raw from the fields, while your father whittles a tool beside her. Children squabble and learn the hard lessons of sharing space and scarce resources. The elderly sit by the fire, their stories weaving the past into the present, their frailty a constant reminder of life's precarious grip. This isn't just a family, it's a survival unit, a tight-knit bundle of need and dependency, where every action, every breath, impacts the others. The lack of personal boundaries we cherish today is not merely absent. The concept barely exists. Your body is just one among many in this cramped space. Privacy isn't a right. It's an impossible luxury. Bodily functions, moments of grief or joy, arguments, reconciliation, it all happens under the same roof, within earshot, within sight. You learn to navigate this constant, forced intimacy from birth. You learn to fold yourself into the collective, to prioritize the needs of the whole over the desires of the self. It shapes your understanding of relationships in ways that feel alien to the modern mind. Bonds aren't just forged through shared experiences and affection. They are physically inescapable, hammered into being. It makes you wonder, what kind of resilience is forged when escape is not an option? Did this constant closeness breed deeper love, or simply tolerance born of necessity? This home, despite its hardships, is your sanctuary. It's a fragile shield against the wildness outside, the wolves, the bandits, the harsh judgments of the village. Here, within the circle of firelight and kin, you find your place. It's a constant negotiation, a delicate dance of bodies and wills in a space far too small. It highlights the absolute core of medieval survival, not the individual striving alone, but the collective unit, the household, as the bedrock of existence. Our modern obsession with personal space, with privacy, with solitude, feels like a strange, almost dangerous vulnerability when viewed through the smoky haze of this medieval hearth. What is gained when your closest connections are not just emotional, but physically inescapable? What is lost when the warmth of constant presence is exchanged for the cold comfort of personal space? Within these smoky walls, life is raw, exposed, and utterly dependent on the bonds forged in the shared heat and inescapable closeness of kin. Birth, life, death, all witnessed within these same four walls, under the watchful, unblinking eye of necessity. Beyond your small wattle and daub walls lies the village. Not just a collection of huts, but a living, breathing entity, a knot of human lives tied by necessity. The path, worn smooth by generations, leads past familiar doors, the air thick with the scent of wood smoke, animal waste, and the distant, earthy smell of tilled fields. Here stands the church, its small tower, a beacon, and a constant reminder of God's eye and the priest's watchful gaze. Nearby, perhaps the sturdy stone of the Lord's manor, a symbol of power, both protecting and oppressing. Further out, the essential creak and groan of the mill, the heartwood of your shared survival, grinding the grain you all rely on. This is your immediate world, the tangled web you navigate from dawn until dusk. Your neighbors aren't just faces, they are kin, rivals, allies, and burdens. Survival here is a collective act. When the harvest ripens faster than one family can manage, hands from a dozen households join in the fields, reaping, binding, hauling. Shared knowledge passes from elder to youth. Which plants heal, where the best foraging lies, the signs of changing weather etched into the sky. Mutual protection is unspoken. A raid, a wolf pack, a sickness striking one family means the whole village braces, helping where they can, praying together in a shared fear. It is a safety net woven from obligation and desperate interdependence. Yet this closeness breeds friction. Disputes flare over boundaries marked by stones moved ever so slightly. A chicken straying into a neighbor's vegetable patch, an unkind word remembered for years. These aren't minor annoyances. In a life where resources are scarce and everyone knows everyone's business, a slight can fester, threatening the very cooperation you need to live. The village becomes a constant negotiation, a tightrope walk between the absolute necessity of working together to endure the harshness of the world outside and the inevitable grinding friction of living in close, unavoidable proximity with flawed, fearful people. There is no escape, no privacy in the way you understand it today. Every decision, every argument, plays out under the eyes of the community. It is a world where the success and failure of the group is deeply and immediately felt by the individual. This intense, interdependent community life, for all its backbiting and limitations, offered a tangible safety net, a shared sense of purpose that modern individualism often lacks. Your survival was not merely your own. It was inextricably linked to the survival of the man who argued with you last week, the woman who gossips about your family, the children who play with yours in the dirt street. This constant negotiation between reliance and independence, this lack of anonymity, forces a question. Do our vast, often digital, often diffuse networks offer the same bedrock of tangible support, the same immediate collective breath of purpose, as this small, demanding medieval village for all its disputes and suffocation? Or have we traded a vital, if messy, human connection for the quiet, sometimes isolating space of individual choice? The great stone church dominates the horizon, a constant, unmoving anchor in a world of shifting fortunes. You walk towards it on Sunday morning, the rough path worn smooth by generations of feet. The bells toll, a resonant heartbeat for the village, calling you to gather, to conform, to remember your place. Inside, it is cool and dim, smelling of old stone, beeswax candles, and damp earth. The Latin pours forth from the priest at the altar, a rushing river of sound whose meaning you only grasp in scattered words. Deus peccata infernum. Yet the rituals are etched into your muscle and bone, learned from birth, when to kneel, when to cross yourself, when to bow your head. This man in the simple robes, Father Thomas, is more than just a preacher. He is the voice of God on earth, the dispenser of potent blessings upon your meager crops and weary body, and the terrifying messenger of damnation for the slightest misstep. He is the axis around which this small world turns, offering solace in shared ritual, community in communal prayer, and a vital, ordered framework for a life that feels perpetually on the brink of chaos. Why did the blight take the wheat this year? Why did the fever claim 3 children in a week? Why does the Lord of the Manor grind you ever deeper into the dust? The Church offers answers, divine ones, connecting earthly suffering to sin, to God's mysterious plan, or to the insidious work of unseen evil. It provides narrative where there is no science, explanation where there is only pain. But this deep reliance on faith is inextricably bound to profound fear. Fear of the terrifying judgment to come. Fear of hellfire painted in vivid, horrifying detail on the church walls. Fear of demons lurking in the shadows, waiting to snatch your soul. Religion here isn't a comfortable Sunday habit. It's the operating system of your very existence, dictating morality, offering hope or dread for the afterlife, and structuring the social order with divine authority. It reveals a fundamental human need for narrative, for meaning, especially when faced with forces utterly beyond your control. Plague, famine, violence. In a world without secular safety nets or scientific understanding, the Church fills every void, offering both a desperate comfort and a powerful form of control. Ask yourself, are the stories we tell today to make sense of a confusing world, economic theories, political ideologies, online narratives, any less rooted in our own hopes for salvation or our primal fears of chaos? Was the structure of medieval faith purely spiritual, or was it a necessary survival mechanism, a way to impose order and find meaning when reality was too brutal to bear? The Church, in its towering stone and whispered Latin, wasn't just a building. It was the architect of the medieval mind, forging a worldview from faith, fear, and the desperate human need to understand why. A cough tears through the quiet. It is not a sound of annoyance. It is a sound of dread. Illness visits frequently here. A relentless tide, washing through the village, sparing no one. A fever that burns like brush fire in the bone. A cough that rattles deep in the chest and won't yield. A simple cut from a scythe that festers and turns limb to purple, poisoned flesh. Any of these can be a swift, brutal death sentence. There are no learned physicians, no salves manufactured in clean rooms, no medicines to push back the invading army in the blood. There is only perhaps the village healer, smelling of damp earth and dried herbs. Her knowledge, a patchwork quilt of passed-down lore and hopeful superstition. She might offer a poultice of mallow and honey, or a bitter draught of willow bark. Or there are desperate prayers whispered into the cold night air, pleas to saints whose faces are known only through rough-hewn carvings, or whispered rituals born of older fears, meant to appease spirits unseen but felt keenly when sickness strikes. Death is a familiar figure, as common as the seasons turning. It walks among you, taking siblings from cradles, parents from hearths, neighbors from fields with brutal, heartbreaking regularity. The bells toll often, a mournful rhythm woven into the fabric of daily life. Your own body is a fragile vessel navigating treacherous waters. Life expectancy is low, startlingly so by modern standards. But this number is skewed heavily by the terrifying gauntlet of childhood. If you survive those first perilous years, a cruel lottery where half may fall, you might see 40, perhaps even 50. But the years are etched deeply, leaving you stooped, worn, your hands gnarled by labor, your body a map of hardship, hunger, and past sicknesses that you simply endured. This constant, undeniable proximity to death shaped perspectives profoundly. Life was not a long road stretching far into the distance. It was precarious, a brief, flickering candle flame against an overwhelming darkness. Eternity felt closer, more real than next year's harvest. It fostered a different, perhaps sharper relationship with time and mortality, one where the future was perpetually uncertain and the present was often simply endured, survived hour by weary hour. The urgency was not about accumulating years, but about making peace with the inevitable end that could arrive at any moment. It makes you pause, doesn't it? Consider our modern attempts to push back death at all costs, to prolong life for just a few more years, often at the expense of comfort or meaning. They accepted death as a constant, inevitable presence, built into the very nature of things. What is the cost of our modern denial, this frantic turning away from the one certainty? And what understanding of life, what profound appreciation for the fragile miracle of existence might be gained from accepting mortality as the constant, inescapable companion it was for them every single day? Did their quiet acceptance make their short lives poorer? Or did it lend them a stark, enduring grace we've forgotten how to find? The bell tolls again, not for death this time, but for a new beginning. Except for you, standing in the small, rough-hewn church, beginning feels like calculation. You hold your intended's hand, call them Alara or Thomas, and the touch is less a spark, more the grip of shared fate. Marriage here, in the year of our Lord 1340, is rarely a choice made by the heart alone. It is a ledger entry, a binding contract written not on parchment, but in the very soil you hope to farm together. You are merging two lives, yes, but primarily two economies. Your family needs hands to work the land, to mend the nets, to spin the wool. Their family needs the same, perhaps also a dowry, a few sheep, a bolt of good cloth, maybe a small patch of reclaimed bogland. Love is a concept sung by traveling minstrels, a luxury for kings and queens in distant, improbable castles. For you, love might grow like a stubborn vine from shared hardship, from weathering storms in a drafty cottage, from nursing children through the cough. But the foundation is bedrock necessity. You likely know this person since childhood, grew up in the same few miles, maybe even the same few dozen souls. Your parents likely arranged it, perhaps after hushed conversations about dowries and duties. Suitability measured in strength of back and fertility of bloodline, not kindness of eyes or quickness of wit. Family is your village, your community, your everything. No state promises you a safety net. No distant authority offers solace in times of famine or plague. If your husband dies, if your wife falls ill, if the harvest fails, your family are the only ones truly bound by blood and shared purpose to help. You protect them fiercely, knowing your own survival is woven into theirs. The marriage vows speak of unity before God, yes, But the unspoken truth is a vow of mutual survival before the unforgiving world. It's a surprising insight for modern minds, trained to see marriage as the culmination of individual romantic desire. Here, it is the creation of an essential economic unit. Was there a resilience in this model? A different kind of strength born from facing the world together out of sheer, desperate need? Or was it merely survival without the dignity of choice, a pragmatic bending to the harsh winds of reality? Ask yourself, when the modern economic unit of a family falters today, stripped of those formal, pragmatic bonds, what is left to hold it together when the love, once the sole foundation, has faded? It makes you wonder if the bells of medieval marriage, though tolling for necessity, perhaps rang with a deeper, albeit bleaker, echo of interdependence we've forgotten. The mud clings to your boots as you walk the furrows. Not just dirt, but the story of the soil, told not by books, but by the turn of the worm, the stubbornness of the weed, the way it holds or sheds the spring rain. You cannot read the elegant script of the priest's Bible, bound in leather and kept locked away in the manor house. You cannot read the decrees nailed to the market post, their strange symbols a mystery. Your world is read by the hand, the eye, the ear. This isn't abstract learning. It's woven into the rhythm of your breath, the ache in your bones after a long day's labor. It is the knowledge that keeps you alive. Few in your village hold the key to the written word. The priest can parse the Latin prayers, sharing fragments of the divine narrative, often mixed with warnings of eternal damnation or the importance of tithing. The reeve might scrawl figures representing grain yields for the Lord, a stark, practical use of symbols you don't comprehend. But for you, knowledge flows like the stream that waters your crops. From the source, your elders, your own hard-won experience, down through the community. An old woman knows the signs of a difficult birth. The blacksmith knows the temper of iron in different fires. The hunter knows the secret paths of the deer. This collective wisdom, shared and validated around the fire or over mending nets, is your library, your university. Your understanding of the wider world is a patchwork quilt of rumor and authority. The priest speaks of kings and popes far away, of crusades and holy wars, painting a picture of a world both grand and terrifying, governed by divine will and distant power. Traveling peddlers bring strange goods, a piece of colored glass, a bolt of coarse cloth from another region, and with them, fragments of news, tales of other villages, other hardships, other wonders. These stories, often embellished or distorted, form your geography, your history beyond the scope of your valley. You hear of great cities you'll never see, dangers you can barely imagine. But how much of that information becomes true knowledge, integrated into our lives, shaping our actions? We value abstract data over the ability to mend something with our hands, or read the subtle language of the natural world. We are informed, yes, to a degree they could never conceive. But are we more knowledgeable? Does scrolling through countless facts grant the wisdom held in the calloused hands of someone who knows how to coax life from stubborn soil? Or comfort a neighbor with words learned from a lifetime of shared sorrow and joy?